right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today on behalf of Environment Funders Canada. We are a network of funders attempting to solve the climate and biodiversity crisis. Just that's it, so no biggie. So it has now been 12 hours since our exciting middle of the night evacuation. So I feel I can skip all the formalities and everyone's already interacted in their PJs. So I'm just gonna just get right to it. And normally I'm invited to speak at things and then I'm not invited back again for being too frank. So this time being asked to actually be frank for 8 whole minutes is pretty awesome. I feel very seen. So thank you all for bearing with me. Okay, ecological collapse and climate change. Here we go. The state of our planet is often just depressing. People disconnect from the issue because it's such a monumental problem. It's so complex. How do you get everyone rowing in the same direction? It feels as if, you know, even though we know it's happening, we just want to sort of get really consumed in our little corner of the world and that we occupy, because it's really hard for the human brain to comprehend. Like, even I find myself following the royal family because sometimes it's easier to just think, is Will really cheating on Kate, rather than, you know, the future of our entire species. So that's, you know, I get it, but frankly, we are completely deluding ourselves. So I just, you know, I think we just need to be honest, and sometimes we just have to sit with it, and it sucks. We are deluding ourselves. So my friends and family asked me, like, should we just party it up and just, you know, forget about it? Are we screwed? And, you know, should we just like live it up? And the question in and of itself is actually not very aligned with equity and social justice. That just asking the question is actually not very aligned because, you know, DEI is now, as Ruth was saying, all the rage. Everybody talks about it, everybody claims to care about it, people pretend to care about it, people are trying to figure out solutions. But climate change and the biodiversity crisis is actually the greatest inequity of all. The global south right now is facing devastation. They have been facing this devastation for 2 decades. Famine, war, disease, all of those things that they faced before, but now at a much, much greater magnitude. So for most of humanity, the answer is yes, we are screwed already. So I'm not gonna throw a whole bunch of stats at you about sea level rise and all the ecological indicators and all of that. But I will share this one stat, which is that the wildfires in Canada last year catapulted us from being the 10th largest emitter in the world to the 6th, just by those wildfires. So they undid so much of the progress we made in reducing emissions in other areas. And it's those positive feedback loops that scare me the most. When I was in the 4th grade, I got chickenpox and I went to school a little too early before it had fully resolved. And the teacher said to me, I don't think you should come back yet because you're contagious. And I said, oh, no, but I learned that if you get it earlier, it's better. If you get it when you're an adult, it's way harder. So I'm trying to give it to everybody to help. And I couldn't tell why she thought that was so funny, but it's a similar thing with climate change, right? And it's similar to the human body because the difference between normal body temperature of 36.5 degrees and then death is 43 degrees. So every little degree matters. We're already at 1.5, and that was the target we had set our limit at the Paris climate talks back in 2015. So now the talk is about how do we stay under 2 degrees. Now it's just a little half a degree, but does it matter? So these here, their faces are blurred out thanks to my Google security cousin. These kids here are half of my 14 nieces and nephews. I don't have children, but this is the Canadian contingent. And I was working on my will the other day and I was thinking, okay, what should I put in my will? And I was thinking, these kids have everything. They are literally born with the actual silver spoons that our parents said we were born with. They're the kids of my generation, very successful parents and all of that. They're fine. I'm gonna leave all the money to the issues I care about. But then I thought about it more and I thought, what is life gonna be like for these kids when they are my age? And I think it's gonna be really actually very hard. I think that even for them, these kids, the luckiest ones in our entire lineage, I think they're going to be facing massive economic collapse. I think a world where insurers won't insure them, They're going to be dealing with food prices that will go through the roof, stock market collapse due to supply chain issues, there go their RSPs, rising crime due to economic insecurity, massive amounts of climate refugees coming here, and public assets being consumed with firefighting, literally, but also metaphorically, leaving very little money left in the public purse for a functioning healthcare system and all the kind of basic public infrastructure that we rely on. COVID was really just a tiny teaser of what we're up against. So here's where I'm going to get super frank. Societal collapse, we try not to say this very much in the enviro world, but we all know it. Societal collapse is imminent. And what we need to do right now is lay the groundwork, lay the foundation for the new worlds that will emerge out of the ashes of that collapse. So we could either completely deteriorate, like you see in a lot of the sci-fi movies, or we could evolve. And where are we today in that process? Well, that red line is Canada, and the blue line is everywhere else. Here in Canada, we're still trying to solve the problem with capitalism. And in Canada, capitalism can't save us because our current economic system really is designed to serve the vested interests. It's those vested interests that are driving the curve up rather than down. Democracy is not thriving, and what little we have is being controlled by those vested interests who have significant resources to control the media and many other aspects of our society. The alt-right is rising. Abacus Data recently released some polling that shows that we're not actually very different from Americans, though we like to think we are. And a case in point is the carbon price debate that you see going on right now, right? We live in a post-truth world. And in a post-truth world, politics is fueled by emotions of tribalism amongst a deeply unwell populace. And that trumps evidence. And that makes the political calculus very, very unsafe for anybody who tries to do a damn thing about it. And so we need to make it safe. And so people often say to me, Devika, you're gonna like this. There's a food delivery service in my community that uses reusable containers. I don't care. I really don't. Because saving our planet is a story of power. It's not a story of nature or animals, it's a story about us, right? Alan Watts said that the earth peoples like an apple tree apples. And to really deal with this power, we need to build power. We need to build power of constituencies that counteract the influence of vested interests. We need people power. We need to change the political calculus, and we need to change the narrative. If 70% of us were talking about climate change and ecosystem collapse all the time, it would be a game changer, because that would help to achieve the social tipping points that create that political calculus. And we've seen it in all kinds of things that have ever changed in the world. Abolition of slavery, women's rights, gay marriage, etc. But even recently, we've had examples where power was built, power was wielded, and it was only because of that power that anything changed. The Greenbelt being, a good example. If I could get every single person to just do a few things for the climate, I would say call your elected representative, and tell them that you will support whoever takes the strongest action, join a protest, and most importantly, talk with your family and friends. Talk with your family and friends. So this leads me to sort of the last point. What influence do you have in this room as people who are wealth advisors, fundraisers, philanthropy consultants? Now, I started my career in fundraising, so this is a topic that's near and dear to me. And in my evolution as a fundraiser, I went from thinking of my role as like salesperson to dating service, and then eventually to life coach. And it's with that life coach frame of mind that I'd like to make my final pitch to you, which is to ask yourself, what is it within this big, situation that I've just described? Where is your locus of control? First, within the philanthropic slice of the pie, the amount that goes to the environment is very, very tiny. This is the part of the movement, of the sector, that's dealing with the biggest existential crisis, and we have one of the tiniest slices of the pie. So anything you can do to increase the size of that pie is huge. But secondly, in the other areas of the pie where you are working, whatever you can do to think about the impacts of climate change and ecosystem devastation on those issues, bring them into the staff meetings, into the board meetings, into the presentations you're doing. That in and of itself will help to change the political calculus. And without that political calculus, we're not moving to the systemic solutions that are non-negotiable. So philanthropy, this is the last frank thing I'm going to say, philanthropy shouldn't actually exist, in my opinion, based on the the kind of economy that we should be living in. But it does exist. It's the most flexible capital of all, which is why I work in the sector. And I think we should use it to create that softer landing during this period of collapse so that we can build the revolution that will be needed for a new and better world. And if you want to use a reusable mug for your coffee to fuel the revolution, I will support that too.